Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Let's go ahead and let's start this whole new playlist here. Not actually with a suggestion, but something from the random cryptid generator website that I use every now and then. So this one actually landed on a cryptid that has to do with a lake monster. And it's actually a very close iteration of a very famous lake monster. You'll see more of that here in just a moment. But this one has to do with the area of Japan. So apparently Japan has its own famous lake monster as well. So I'm going to share all the information I can here for this entry, including its characteristics and then also some of the encounters that it's had. In fact, you're looking at some of the pictures, like a representation of it here. Has a pretty interesting but catchy name, obviously something that throws back to its iteration. It's called Issie. Sounds a lot like Nessie, doesn't it? And that's more on a purposeful side, again, in just a moment. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this information for Issie. I'll give my thoughts and opinions on it. Let me know what you guys and gals think as well. So what is Issie? Well, Issie, I believe another name for it is Ishi as well, is a very famous, almost legendary Japanese lake monster. And if you're wondering if it has any close resemblance to Nessie, not just in a name only, definitely it does, because it has so much other physical characteristics to the world famous Loch Ness monster. In fact, if but for the fact that this location was in Japan, if you were to swap these two lake monsters between one or another, you would pretty much swear that they were one and the same. Maybe they are. Maybe just happen to be different locations altogether. But first, let's talk about its physical characteristics, and obviously, you'll see how much it resembles the world famous Nessie. So it's been a creature that was reported to be about 20 to 30 meters long already. Very long. You're talking about 90 feet total in length. It has a blackish or reddish hue in color. It also has a very prominent hump on its back, although apparently some of the other encounters that I remember reading say that it might be two, but it may be more on the lines of how it looks like as well. And then it also has an extremely elongated body shape, and it could either be more along the lines of an eel, or maybe along the lines of a snake, or maybe even, again, as a long-lost dinosaur, something within the realm of the world of Nessie. The problem is the encounters that people have had with this creature are very brief, even over the past few decades. We're talking maybe seconds at most, so it's very hard to tell if it truly is more along the lines of a long-lost dinosaur or if it resembles like an oversized eel or snake. But in either case, what very few sightings are there, the even rarer sightings happen to do with its head. Whatever is the case with this creature, it absolutely knows to hide most of its body very well within the lake. And the last time anybody reported seeing its head, nonetheless, has been since the 1970s. So we're talking 50 years plus in this case. But otherwise, it has been seen with other people in and around over the several decades. If you wanted to say one last thing about its physical characteristics, it may have had a head the size of an oil drum. Pretty large, in other words. So that gives you an idea about its stature. Now, as far as its location, it's found there at a lake called Lake Ikeda, which is found on an island called Kyushu. So those of you that know this location, maybe have visited in the past, if you go see it and you want to just travel by the lake, who knows, you might have a chance to see this legendary lake monster that's located there. And if you do, you're going to be one of the very few to have ever done so. So consider yourself very blessed on that regard. Now, as far as the actual encounters that this creature has had, again, they have been very few and far in between. I'm going to talk about one of the most well-known ones, only because it happened several times to the same people. It was Yutaka Kawaji and another person named Hideo Kawaji. And even though they share the same last name, apparently they're not related, like they're different from each other. But they are both witnesses to this cryptid there in Japan. And originally they saw it while they were in elementary school. So they saw it there. Apparently they saw it in the lake, and that was very, very brief, and that was it. There was nothing else really to mention of it, just for a few seconds seeing something that was within that water. But in either way, in 1978, the spring of 1978, Yutaka saw this creature while he was there in a nearby garden. But again, not much else to mention on it because it was very, very brief. Now, the one where there were a lot of much more encounters, like in much more visual encounters, happened to be in September 3rd of 1978. Same year, that's when there, not only did he see it, but also his children saw it, and then also about 20 other people saw this creature. So they were all there right by the lake shore, and apparently the waters there were completely still. I mean, it was stated that it was almost like a sheet of glass, mirror smooth. That's how the conditions were on that lake. So that's mentioned ahead of time because the idea that maybe something like a log was floating nearby or something else was being caused by the winds to traverse that lake. Absolutely not. Like, it was 100% completely still. And so they were there by that lake, and that's when they saw these big humps, several of them, in fact, 2 or more, that ended up measuring about 5 meters long, just a little over 15 feet long, and it was standing about maybe 2 feet outside of the water. Apparently the children were the first to see this thing that was out there, and so they were trying to locate the presence of this creature, and then also, I guess, tell the adults there about what was happening. And so Yutaka was there. He was able to get on top of a motorboat, and then he was traversing that lake, trying to go actually in pursuit of the famous Issie. Maybe he just wanted to finally see it in person, up close and personal. Maybe he was remembering again seeing it as a young lad there in school, in elementary school, and then finally having a second chance or another chance to do so very, very closely. So he was able to actually get into that immediate area of where Issie was located. By then, though, Issie had traveled a good distance. It shows that it can travel pretty fast, in other words, when it has to. And when that occurred, then he was able to take a photo, or he was actually hoping to take a picture of this notorious creature, but he didn't have a camera at that time. But it enabled him afterwards to actually purchase a very, very nice camera with a 135 millimeter lens to ensure that if he ever got the chance, then he would be able to do so in that instance. Take a picture of it and keep it for everyone's records. But unfortunately, that was it. There really wasn't much else that was seen after those initial moments. If you're talking a record length of an encounter when it comes to a visual representation, this is it. 20 seconds. That's how long they saw this creature. Previously, again, people had only seen it for a few moments, if even that. But now they were able to see it in its entirety. And when I say entirety, meaning just its humps, really. They could do so, and it was about 20 seconds long. Isn't that crazy? The idea that you could have something like this be so brief, but be so memorable, and that would be a world record when it comes to its time of being visible. This creature absolutely knows how to make sure that it hides itself from anybody there within that lake. The only other notable encounter really to talk about here was from another person, a guy by the name of Toshiaki Matsura. He had also heard the legends associated with the lake. He was there apparently one afternoon of December 16th, that very same year too. 1978 seems to be a prominent year when it comes to sightings of this creature. It was 1:30 in the afternoon, and that's when he saw by that lake a whirlpool suddenly appear. This was there in the middle of the lake itself. And so he saw it, and this was through the lens of a 50 times telescope, and then he saw that it was something there moving up northward for about 5 minutes before something disappeared. And all he could describe was it was something that was moving the waves around that location. Obviously it had caused the actual whirlpool as well. But whatever he did see appeared to be maybe 2 humps, and he also described it as having some spinal ridges as well. And so that was another encounter of sorts that could be considered a notable one. At one point, there was even a reward tied to the existence of this creature. Apparently, the city of Ibusuki had offered a reward of 100,000 yen, which is about $670, and so anyone that could produce a photo of Issie. Now, it did not say whether it was $670 from that point in 1978, or in today's standards, like $670 already calculated with inflation. But if we go by the first instance, then that would be about almost $3,300. That was the reward associated with any good picture of Issie. Unfortunately, there wasn't really much, like in terms of photos that were given, although Mr. Matsuhuri was able to take at least some picture that he listed there. And apparently that location, that tourism department official, were able to actually award him the prize money. And so they were able to give him, I guess, enough credence, enough credit for being able to take a picture of what is reported to be Issie, and that allowed him to claim that prize. So interesting stuff. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. The only other thing to mention about this creature and its possible explanation is this. Some people state that it could actually be a large eel. In that lake, there are apparently many giant mottled eels, which you're looking at a picture of here. It is said that whenever they swim to the surface of the water and the light is hitting, I guess, in the right angle and something along those lines, it creates a silhouette which looks to be like a very, very large creature when it's not. It just happens to be a regular mottled eel. But some of the local residents there state that no, that is not true. They've been there long enough. They've seen it or heard of its legend enough times, and have other witnesses have seen it to know it is not the case, to the point that one local resident told, I guess, somebody that was granting an interview there, they stated, "We stopped insisting that just a big eel is Issie." So that's their official stance. They know it's not a big eel. They know it's not a mottled eel. They know it's its own creature. It's an actual lake monster. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information linked to Issie, otherwise known as Ishi. They're in Japan. They're in the lake monster side of cryptids. If anybody has any more info, something else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. All right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.